From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Puck Podcast. It is Sunday, May the 11th. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. This is the first period of a three-period podcast. The first period, which some of you are watching on YouTube, recaps the opening games of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll also discuss some of the hockey headlines from this week, including my team looking for a new GM and Doug's team they've hired a new head coach. Second period is our interviewer special feature segment. This week, Doug will have a chat with the host of Locked On Islanders, Gil Martin, to talk about their GM search and getting the number one pick in the upcoming NHL draft. And our third period is our fan feedback segment where we read listener emails and we have our off-ice report talking about what's going on in our lives. You can find all three periods on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you're seeing on our YouTube channel, please subscribe, get notified when our latest shows are out.
This show is the original hockey podcast. We've been doing this since July of 2006 and have not missed a week since. Eddie and I have combined for over 50 years of experience in sports media, and this show and our status as members of the NHL media is over 30 years old as in the NHL media. So we are been doing this a long time. We've been talking hockey, and we cover all 32 teams equally. So whatever the big stories are, that's where we start. And for that, I turn it over to my friend, my co-host, and a man who is wearing a red shirt, which is uncommon for him. That's not a common color for you when you're not at a Fresno State game. Eddie Garcia.
Thank you, Doug. I thought you might include his Confederate, his lover.
No.
You were introducing me with all of my accolades, but I'm glad you did not do that. If you know what that movie's from, then what do we say, Doug?
It's time for your colonoscopy.
That is correct. Second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs are underway. It has been a very interesting start to round number 2. So let's get right into it. And we will start with arguably the most intriguing series of the second round. It was the series that got started first. That was the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Leafs won in a 6-game series against the Senators to advance into round number 2. The Panthers won a 5-game series over the Lightning to get into round number 2 and take another step towards getting into the Stanley Cup final for a third straight year. Series opens up in Toronto because the Leafs are the Atlantic Division champions, and it was a great start for the home team in game number 1 with William Nylander scoring on the first shot of the game, 33 seconds in, his first of 2 goals in the first period. And the Leafs would add a third goal, take a 3-1 lead over the Panthers after one period. Toronto would add the only goal the second period, at a 4-1 lead going into the third. However, in that second period, Toronto netminder Anthony Stolhand is forced out of the game after taking a blow to the head from Florida's Sam Bennett, who was called for goalie interference. The Panthers tried to stage a comeback with the first 2 goals of the third period. They cut it to 4-3. However, Matthew Nyes had a big insurance goal to make it 5-3. Sam Bennett would score with there 2 minutes to go to make it a 1-goal game again, but the Panthers would get no closer. Toronto holds on for the 5-4 victory. In relief, goaltender Joseph Woll allowed 3 goals on 20 shots in the victory. We would later find out Anthony Stolhand was vomiting and taken to the hospital after taking that blow to the head. So his status going forward would be in question. As for the Florida netminder, the veteran Sergei Bobrovsky allowed 5 goals on 30 shots in the loss. But a great start by the home team, and they parlay that into a Game 1 victory.
Yeah, how about the start there? You mentioned William Nylander getting the goal 33 seconds in. It's the third fastest goal to begin a playoff series in franchise history. So obviously it's Game 1. And the only 2 times in Leafs history that a goal has been scored earlier in a Game 1. We're going back to the 1951 Stanley Cup final when they scored 15 seconds in.
It was shortly before we started this podcast.
Yes. And then just before you were born, the 1922 NHL final. It wasn't even the Stanley Cup back then, 30 seconds in. So it has been a while since Toronto has had a goal that early in a Game 1. But then again, I'm sure it's been even longer for the Blue Jackets. Never probably that early in a Game 1. But it is the 7th fastest game opening goal in Maple Leafs history, and they've been around for a long time. So regardless, for the postseason, I should say. So quite impressive to get off to that big a start. And on home ice, that's what they obviously wanted. Every team wants a goal early, but when you're on home ice against the defending Stanley Cup champions, you want to get the crowd who's already excited, rewarded as soon as possible and feeling good about themselves, and that does it. So that was a big one for him. And Morgan Riley getting a goal in this one, that passes him for the most playoff goals in Maple Leafs by a Maple Leafs defenseman in franchise history. So that's pretty impressive there. So they're all coming through. We mentioned every time the star players have to be the star players. And when you're getting Morgan Riley and William Nylander scoring goals, that's obviously big. But the depth guys, Matthew Nyes coming through, you got different players contributing, and that's what you're going to need if you're going to beat these the Florida Panthers. But obviously, the story of the game, even though you win, you're all holding your breath about the status of starting goalie Anthony Stolarz. And we've talked about this in the past with different injuries and different hits. We've compared it many times to the Dale Earnhardt death in NASCAR, where it didn't look that catastrophic, and yet it killed him. This didn't look like that much contact to cause vomiting and send somebody to the hospital.
I will say he took a shot off the mask earlier in the game as well. I wonder if it was a cumulative effect.
Correct. It's the cumulative. It has to be, because there's no way, in which case the concussion spotters have failed in their mission to protect players, to say, hey, that guy needs to be taken off for evaluation. Now, I get that they're going to be very hesitant to do so in a playoff game, to pull the starting goalie off the ice. I get that. But that's your job. You're not there to say, let's wait till the intermission and see how it goes, because of exactly what happened. If second contact happens and it's going to make the problem that much worse, then it needs to be avoided. So the concussion spotters, their entire job is to watch for players taking shots to the head. And he literally took a shot to the head. I don't know if he showed any signs. I'm not trained at recognizing the signs. They are. But when I saw the hit from Bennett, and obviously Sam Bennett's not going to get the benefit of the doubt from anybody he's playing against. He is he's towed that line many times. But when you see the hit and then you see the result, he's throwing up, he has to be taken to the hospital. You're like, that can't be from that hit I just saw. It wasn't even square on. We've seen goalies take much worse collisions to the head and not have that reaction. So scary stuff, though. But they won the game, and yet it had to be a little bit of a hollow victory, only in the sense that, is our starting goalie going to be available for the rest of this series?
Well, he would not be available for game number 2, as Joseph Woll would get the start. As for game 2, the two teams would trade power play goals in the opening period. We'd be tied 1-1 after one. Second period, Brad Marchand would give Florida a 2-1 lead, but Toronto would answer with 2 goals, including William Nylander's 6th of the postseason, and the Leafs led 3-2 after 2. In the third, Florida would tie it up at 3 apiece, but Mitch Marner would score just 17 seconds later after the Panthers tied it up, and that would turn out to be the game-winning goal. 4-3, Leafs get the win to take a 2-0 series lead. For Joseph Woll, he allowed 3 goals on 28 shots in the win. Sergei Bobrovsky, 4 goals on 20 shots in the loss. He's not the best color man in the league for nothing. No thoughts on game 2?
You tell me to put on the mute, and then I forget to take it off. There's no anyway. I forgot to take my mic off mute. So
okay, good.
No, the Joseph Woll has to feel good about coming in, obviously, in a high pressure situation. Now, granted, you got a 1-0 series lead, you're on home ice, but still, to come in and get that win, not feel like you're the weak link in a team. Nobody wants that. We mentioned the star players that came through. Now it's Mitch Marner scoring a goal. That guy is going to be the highest paid player in the NHL next season, because every team that missed the playoffs and some that got in the playoffs and were eliminated are ready to write the biggest check possible to get him. So if he wants to, he can write his own ticket. But he comes to, and here's why, because he had a 100-point season and he comes through with a clutch goal here in a big game. So obviously the best players are coming through, and Toronto holding court on home ice. The home fans are loving it. Both games were close, but ultimately Joseph Woll outplayed Sergei Bobrovsky in both games, made the save when he needed to, got the win. This is huge for Toronto. It's only 2 games, obviously. Florida, you're not in trouble until you lose on home ice. They haven't lost yet, so we'll see how things go. But at that point, Toronto's looking at it like, man, we need to win 2 of the next 5 games, and we're on to the conference final. And we would and potentially have home ice advantage in it. So huge opportunity for them. And Florida has to get better play from their star players. They need better play from Bobrovsky, and they need their star players to start scoring some big goals.
Well, game number 3, obviously, the series now shifting to Florida, and we would not have Anthony Stolarz making the trip. So he obviously out for games 3 and 4 for the Maple Leafs. The Leafs, though, looking right at home early on, scoring 23 seconds into the game thanks to a Matthew Knies goal. Toronto would lead 2-0 before Florida would close out the scoring in the opening period. The score was 2-1 Maple Leafs after 1. Panthers would trail 3-1 after a John Tavares power play goal, but Florida would then score the next 3 goals to take a 4-3 lead after 2 periods. Only goal of the third scored by Morgan Rielly of Toronto. We were again tied 4-4, now heading into overtime, and in sudden death, noted Leafs killer Brad Marchand gets the game winner on the power play for a big 5-4 Panthers win. Sergei Bobrovsky, who was very good in the overtime period, allowed 4 goals on 31 shots in the win. In the loss, Joseph Woll allowed 5 goals on 36 shots. This was a bit of a weird game because 4 different goals, 2 for each team, went off their own players and into their own net, including the overtime game winner. It was 2 off of defenseman Morgan Rielly and into the net for the Leafs, including the OT game winner. In the win, I mentioned Sergei Bobrovsky, 4 goals allowed on 31 shots. Joseph Woll allowed 5 goals on 36 shots. I repeat myself. Brad Marchand, now 33 career points in 31 career playoff games against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And he's never lost a series against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is 4-0 in his career in series against them. This would be 5-0 if the Panthers can advance. So he's only known victory against Toronto. And him, I mean, a trade deadline acquisition, we talked about it at the deadline. What a great addition to get a greasy goal scorer and proven playoff producer for a team that was already a defending Stanley Cup champion. And you get a guy that is clutch, is coming in as depth, doesn't need to be the star player, and it was exactly for moments like this. So they got what they wanted out of that trade, and that was huge. A multi-goal comeback to avoid a 3-0 series deficit is huge for Florida, obviously. You go down 3-0, you're not eliminated, but it feels like a matter of time. Now, granted, we've seen the reverse sweep from some teams in the past that were up 3-0 and they lose in 7. But when you've got that kind of every team would still take it and take their chances to win one of the next 4. Florida now finds a way to win, didn't play their best defensively or in net, but still got a win. And Anthony Stolarz not even being on the trip means that there's no option to go back to him in game 4. You have to go back to Joseph Woll, who just gave up 5 goals. It's not ideal. He hasn't played great. He played good enough to win game 2 and won, but it sets the Panthers up for defending their home ice, which Toronto did, and evening this series back up at 2.
All right, and on to game number 4. Florida, several power play opportunities in the opening period. They finally would cash in on one late and take a 1-0 lead. Carter Verhaeghe with the power play goal. No scoring in the second period, but the Leafs' Joseph Woll was playing great up to that point. Really was keeping the Maple Leafs in the game. Third period, Sam Bennett would capitalize on a Toronto turnover, showed great patience, was pretty much allowed to skate right in on net and would score easily past the sprawling and hung out to dry Joseph Woll to make it 2-0. And that would be the final. Sergei Bobrovsky, a 23-save shutout. He was excellent, although not the busier of the 2 goalies. Joseph Woll, I thought, actually played great, but didn't get any support. He had allowed 2 goals on 37 shots. So the series is tied at 2-2. It is the best 2 out of 3 with 2 of those games, if there are 2 games, in Toronto. Interesting that 2 big names have yet to score in this series through 4 games. Austin Matthews for the Leafs, Matthew Tkachuk for the Panthers.
And you got to think both of them are going to make their presence felt at some point. And if
Well,
not,
whoever does certainly would have a big edge in the series, I would think.
I was going to say it the other way. Whoever doesn't is probably going to be losing. If Austin Matthews goes the entire series without a goal, the Maple Leafs will probably lose the series. And if Matthew Tkachuk goes the entire series without a goal, the Panthers will probably lose the series. They both have depth, but you need your best player to come through at some point. You mentioned the Sam Bennett goal, the patience, where Joseph Woll doing everything he can. I liked Tanev trying to get back. He was at the side of the net. He was trying to get back out in front, but Jake McCabe, like
Ran into
a
him.
bowling
Yeah.
pin or a bowling ball, just fell down and took out him and Carter Verhaeghe and pinned everybody up against there. So that, as you said, Sam Bennett all alone in front of the net with an open net to shoot into. And of all people, Maple Leafs fans were cursing extra hard, adding a little bit of extra emphasis on the obscenities, that Sam Bennett was the guy that scored the goal. You can almost take anybody other than him. He's the reason Anthony Stolarz isn't in net right now. And now he's scoring goals against the backup. And, but obviously a huge pair of games for Florida. Nobody's lost anything now. As you mentioned, both teams win on their home ice, 2-2. The momentum, though, is definitely on Florida's side. They've won the last two. They've got the shutout win. Bobrovsky played a good game, and Joseph Woll seems to have, like you said, he played great and still lost. So if Anthony Stolarz is unavailable, and I would be very surprised if he played game 5. I'd be surprised if he was even available as the backup. He could be the backup, maybe, but it seems dangerous to make him the backup in case he needs to go in for any reason. So if Joseph Woll is the starter, it puts a lot of pressure. You go back to the Kings-Oilers series, the home team won the first 2 games on their home ice. So it was 2-2 after 4. Same situation here. We go into a game 5, and what did we say? That's a big game for the Kings, because if they win that one, they have 2 chances to close it out. If they lose that, they go to Edmonton having to win a game where they haven't won so far in this series. Same thing here. Toronto, I think, needs to win game 5, because the chances are not good that you go down to Florida with a team that won the Stanley Cup last year and a chance to close it out and advance to the conference final, having won 3 straight, and you're going to beat them in 2 straight, again, with your backup goalie, who at that point would have lost 3 straight. So big game 5 for Toronto. Florida, if they lose game 5, I don't think panics. They figure we win game 6 on home ice, and then we go on the road and we take our chances.
I agree.
I think there's a ton of pressure on Toronto, and of course the media is going to be playing a part in that. It's hard to avoid it. We'll see how they respond. It would be great for Toronto and their fans if they finally came through and rose to the occasion. And if Austin Matthews has been saving some goals in that magic stick of his, now's the time to unleash him, man, because this would be a great game to set it off, get a couple goals scored, get the crowd into it, and get your team 1 win away from a conference final.
Yeah, I like the Florida Panthers in this best of 3. They're more experienced. They're more physical. They've got the better goaltender. They've been there, done that. It's hard not to like, even though 2 of the potential 3 games are in Toronto, it's hard not to like the Florida Panthers in this situation. I did want to ask you about the incident at the end of game 4. Max Domi takes a cheap shot, goes after Alexander Barkov as time's expiring, because who cares if it's a penalty? I'm going to take a shot at one of their top guys who's completely not expecting it. Fortunately, Barkov got right back up and looks to be okay. Domi was called for a 5-minute major, but again, who gives a crap, because the game's over. I mean, I will be shocked if the NHL suspends him. I would love to see it. I think they'll probably fine him because Barkov didn't get hurt. But what a cheap shot by Max Domi. Not shocking. He has done that kind of thing. But it was one of those things that you're like, I love this game, but I don't love that.
Well, how do you not? Okay, I'm gonna go the other way. They have to suspend him because he has a history. How do you fine a guy that you've already suspended in the past?
Because
obviously,
he didn't hurt him. That's why.
I know, but the
and I agree with you.
Escalate. The punishment has to escalate. You can't go back a couple steps and say, well, now we're just going to fine him. You've already suspended this guy for illegal hits and illegal play.
I'll be shocked if they suspend him. I'll be shocked.
I won't be.
Really?
Yeah. No.
I think they should, but I will be shocked if they do. I really will. Because he didn't get hurt. That's their whole thing. You can do something dirty and we'll reprimand you with a fine, but we're not going to suspend you for a playoff game unless you hurt somebody.
Well, it wasn't that long ago that he was suspended, right, for the reverse hit that
I don't care.
Or no, that he was not. But
I mean,
no,
I don't think that plays any factor in the playoffs. I really don't.
I'm not saying you're wrong for thinking that, because you could very well be right, and you're justified in the nonsense that this league does. But it will be more of a lunacy of their decision making if they don't suspend him. If they punish him at all. Now to me it's either a suspension or no punishment at all. You cannot fine a player that has been suspended in the past. You cannot go backwards in the punishment journal. And so I think he'll get a 1-game suspension. And
I hope you're right.
Those are the hits that bother me the most, because it's the old school frustration. Now, I was talking with a friend about what we were watching Connor McDavid. We're going to talk about the Oilers series here in a second, Oilers Golden Knights, and him being so good that it has to be absolutely maddening to be a defenseman on the ice against him, because he's so fast, so skilled. You can't do anything to stop him. You do everything right and you still don't stop him. And I said, 30 years ago, someone would have crippled him by now. They would have absolutely lost their mind and just flat out cheap shotted him into early retirement. We saw it with Gary Suter. Paul Kariya scored a goal, made him look foolish, and he cross-checked him right in the head. And Paul Kariya's career was never the same after that, because he was just frustrated. I can't stop you, so I'm going to stop you. That's what Max Domi did, basically. It's frustration. It's an escalation. It's I can't.
I think it was actually worse than that. I think he wasn't frustrated. I think he said, I got a shot at the end of the game to take a shot at one of their top players. I got a free shot. Game's over. They penalized me. Who cares? So I'm going to take it. That's what I think it was. I don't think he was frustrated.
But that it comes from frustration of, if they're winning that game 2-0, he doesn't take that shot.
Right. I agree with that.
So it's the frustration of losing 2 straight.
It's that whole crap. I'm going to send a message for the next game.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Right. I mean, his dad was raised him in a different era. Ty Domi was an old school goon, and yeah, he deserves a suspension. It's a chicken bleep play from a player that knows better, and I think you're absolutely right. And if he gets away with it, if they don't suspend him and they just make him write a check, which who cares when you're a multimillionaire? It's ridiculous, because there's nothing going to stop him from doing it again. And there's nothing stopping if I'm a member of the Panthers, you better have your head on a swivel if
that's
you're
what I was going
to say at the end of the game, because
that's what I was going to say. If I'm
Paul Maurice, I'm sending Thomas Nosek over there and saying, you go take that.
Anybody that's worth a damn,
right?
You get him. Yeah, hey, and you don't want that.
No,
either.
Jonah Gadjevich, go out there and
I would do that if they don't punish him and I'm Paul Maurice. Hell yeah. Eye for an eye. Sorry. If you want to go old school hockey, let's go old school hockey.
And then what do you say if you're the guy that lays the hit on him? Let's say it is AJ Greer drops Austin Matthews in the corner with a cheap shot. You tell him, you thank your buddy Max Domi for that. He doesn't hit Barkov at the end of game 4. I don't hit you right now. So if you're feeling bad, you go tell Domi. He's to blame for that. I didn't want to do this.
I think that's the biggest reason why they might suspend him, because if they don't, it could escalate and retribution. That could be the biggest factor, but we'll see. I hope you're right.
And then you get back to the baseball thing of, you and I are playing against each other.
Right.
You throw a beanball at me, you get warned, and so do I. And then I throw the beanball to retaliate and I get thrown out.
Or, if you're, I don't know, William Nylander, you're like, hey man, I didn't do anything. What are you taking a run at me for? I mean, I get it, but it's not like,
because it doesn't hurt your team to lose Max Domi.
Correct.
It hurts them to lose you.
Right.
He didn't go after one of the tough guys. He went after Sasha Barkov, Selke guy that's
Yeah.
shutting your boys down. So it was a cheap shot, and there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, if you're Toronto, you're looking at it like Sam Bennett put our goalie in the hospital. So
Yeah,
this is
but
not the start of it.
I don't think that was an intentional cheap
But
shot, though.
you know how it is as fans. You
Yeah.
see a guy that has the reputation of Sam Bennett. He doesn't get the benefit of the doubt that that wasn't intentional. He hit the goalie. The guy's in the hospital, and that's how you look at it as a fan. And so, and I'm sure that's how they look at it to a point on the bench as well. Is we gotta send a message that they hit one of our guys, we're gonna hit one of their guys. So it's escalating. This is playoff hockey, though, man. This is what a series does. Is the memories are instantly recalled in the next game because you're playing the same team night after night after night.
All right, let's move on to Capitals versus Hurricanes. Washington won a 5-game series over Montreal to advance, and it was Carolina in 5 over New Jersey to move into round number 2. Opening game of this one in D.C., scoreless opening period. Washington would eventually get the first goal of the game. Alexi Protas, who had been hurt for most of the postseason, gets his first goal of the playoffs, and the Caps grabbed a 1-0 lead. That was after 2 periods. They were up 1-0 because the score was first. Third period, only 1 goal scored. That was Carolina's Logan Stankoven. So we're tied 1-1 after regulation. Game 1 of the series will go to overtime, where Canes defenseman Jacob Slavin put a relatively harmless-looking shot on goal. Traffic in front, found its way in the net, and Carolina gets a big 2-1 road win to open the series. In the victory, Frederik Andersen allowed 1 goal on just 14 shots, and despite the final goal, Logan Thompson, pretty strong game, allowing 2 goals on 33 shots.
Slavin already the 4th different defenseman to score an overtime goal this postseason. And the only time we've had more than that was back in 2020 when we had 6. And he is also the 4th defenseman in Hurricanes or Whalers history with an overtime goal in the postseason. Here are some names Eddie's going to love. Nicholas Wallin, Ian Cole, and Tim Gleason are the other 3 that have pulled off the trick.
Oh,
so
Tim Gleason, former King Great. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got a jersey of his?
I do not. I don't think anyone does but him.
Let's move on to game 2. Obviously, a huge win for Carolina. You're on the road. You go and get home ice advantage taken away, or take it away from the Capitals, who played all season to earn it. And now you control your own fate just to winning on home ice if you go forward.
As for game 2, we have another scoreless opening period. Once again, the second period saw the Capitals get the first goal of the game. Connor McMichael makes it 1-0. On to the third period, where John Carlson's power play goal made it 2-0. Carolina would cut it to 2-1, but Tom Wilson ices it with an empty net goal, and Washington evens the series at 1-1 with a 3-1 victory. Logan Thompson in the win allowed 1 goal on 28 shots. Frederik Andersen allowed 2 goals on 20 shots in the loss. Tom Wilson was an absolute beast in this game. He was blocking shots with his body, dishing out hits, setting up players, and I think he had the assist on the go-ahead goal, and then ices it with the empty net goal. And that guy was an absolute monster in this game.
That's why, I mean, I've always loved those types of guys that can
me too.
literally do everything. The Jerome McGinley, the Swiss Army knife, and can do everything. There's a place for the snipers in the league. There's a place for the physical guys that's their primary goal. But the player that can do everything, how do you not love that player? And when they do it all in one game, it's quite impressive. So hell of a game from Tom Wilson, who will also take you on the bench and beat your ass there as well. So he can do it all. John Carlson, by the way, the ties Peter Bondra for the 3rd most power play goals in postseason in franchise history. The only players that have had more are Alex Ovechkin, of course, and TJ Oshie. So it's also the 10th time he's factored in on a game-winning goal in the postseason, which passes Scott Stevens for the most by a Capitals defenseman. So John Carlson, a member of their Stanley Cup team from the past, a great contributor, and a guy that I think gets overlooked when you look at the league and you say, who are the best defensemen? He's not in that upper tier, but he's probably in the A- group, and we don't talk about him enough as far as his contributions, especially in the clutch.
All right, on to game number 3 as the series shifts to Raleigh, North Carolina. We would have our 3rd straight scoreless opening period. In the second period, Carolina would score twice, including a power play goal from Jack Roslovic to take a 2-0 lead. Two more goals in the third period by the Hurricanes. Jackson Blake, a power play goal. And Carolina skates off with a 4-0 win to now lead the series 2-1. Frederik Andersen in the victory, 21 save shutout in the loss. Logan Thompson was shaky in this one, 4 goals allowed on 28 shots. By the way, Frederik Andersen at this current time leading the postseason in goals against and save percentage. I would not think of that probably if you were asked which goalie is leading those categories, but Freddie Andersen, the veteran, getting it done so far. So again, Carolina with a 2-1 series lead. No goals in the series yet for Alexander Ovechkin. Matter of fact, no points so far, and just 1 shot on goal on the power play in the series. I would suspect that will change as we go forward, but the Great Eight's been pretty quiet so far through 3 games in this series. Again, Carolina leading it 2-1 as we record this show.
You know, we didn't mention it last week. It got lost in the shuffle, but Frederik Andersen signed a contract extension back on May 3rd. And Eric Tulsky the GM of the Hurricanes, may have completely botched the Mikko Rantanen debacle. But my God, what a deal he got here. Frederik Andersen, he just signed him, again, the starting goalie for a Stanley Cup contender and one of the better teams in the league. He signed him to a 1-year extension for $2.75 million. That's nothing. That's absolute peanuts. And you just mentioned it. He's the best goalie in these playoffs so far. And with this game, that's his first ever career shutout with the Hurricanes in the playoffs. But that's the 3rd franchise he's had a playoff shutout for. He was first with the Ducks, then with the Maple Leafs, now with the Hurricanes. That ties him with a bunch of people for second all time in NHL history for most franchises to have a shutout. Curtis Joseph leads that group with 4. He had a shutout for Detroit, Toronto, Edmonton, and St. Louis. And now Freddie Andersen, 1 franchise away from joining that group. But my goodness, what a job by him. And this now that Carolina has home ice and they are up 2-1, it's a very big game 4 for Washington. They have not played it yet. We are going into game 4 tomorrow night as we record this. But Washington had a great regular season. This is the first time all year that they have found themselves in a we got to win this game situation. Not a must win, obviously, but a strongly recommended. Because if you go down 3-1 and have to face this team 3 straight games and try and win you have to win all 3. That's a tough place to be in. But you win game 4, it's 2-2 going back for home ice on game 5. You're feeling a lot better about yourself. Massive game 4, as well as Carolina has played so far. They have an opportunity in game 4 to take a stranglehold in this series and move themselves 1 game away from the conference final.
All right, let's move out west and talk about the Oilers against the Golden Knights. Vegas winning a 6-game series against Minnesota to advance into round 2. Edmonton winning a 6-game series against LA to advance to round number 2. Opening game of this one in Las Vegas, and a good start for the home squad. Mark Stone scores a power play goal just 2:13 into the game. Vegas would also get the next goal as well and led 2-0 before the Oilers score their first goal of the series. It's a Vegas 2-1 lead after 1. Scoreless second period. Leon Draisaitl would score 57 seconds into the third to tie it at 2-2. Edmonton would tack on the next 2 goals, including what would be the game winner from Zach Hyman, and skate off with a 4-2 road win to grab a 1-0 series lead. Calvin Pickard allowed 2 goals on just 17 shots in the victory. Aiden Hill, 4 goals allowed on 28 shots in the loss.
How about Calvin Pickard moving to 5-0
Yep.
in these playoffs? The dude is not even supposed to be playing, and he's undefeated, 5-0. Amazing. And Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl each assisted on a goal for the 27th time in their history. That ties them for the second most in NHL history for any duo. Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman have also assisted on the same goal 27 different times. Of course, the teammates that have done this the most, Wayne Gretzky and Jari Kurri, 37. So McDavid and Draisaitl are only 10 away from tying that record, and they have many more years to play. They're definitely going to get the record at some point. It could be as soon as this season, depending on how long they play. But absolutely amazing how well the Oilers have found themselves after being down 2-0 in that first round, now winning 5 straight and looking like they get behind, they're not worried. They are very comfortable playing from behind. You don't want to be behind, but this is a team that has no panic in their game whatsoever. And they have proven time and again, home or road, they can come back and find a way to win as they do here again. And now they have home ice advantage for the remainder of the series.
On to game number 2, and Vegas would score the only goal of the opening period. Victor Olofsson on the power play, and the Golden Knights had a 1-0 lead after one. Second period, the Oilers scored 3 straight goals, 2 by defensemen Jake Wallman and Darnell Nurse. William Karlsson would score the final goal of the period to cut it to 3-2 Edmonton. Oilers scored the opening goal of the third. Evander Kane with the goal, but the Golden Knights scored twice to tie it up. Olofsson gets his second, and Alex Pietrangelo with the goal to even it at 4-4. We go overtime. Nicholas Waugh for Vegas took a ridiculous cross-checking penalty to the face of the Oilers' Trent Frederick, a 5-minute major. Shockingly, Vegas killed it off. However, it seemed to take a lot of steam out of him. Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid would team up on a 2-on-1. McDavid easily skating around Jack Eichel, feeding Draisaitl for the empty net game-winning goal, and Edmonton wins it 5-4 in overtime, winning both games on the road to open up the series and take a 2-0 lead. Oilers' 6th straight come from behind win, which is an NHL record. Calvin Pickard improving to 6-0 this postseason. He allowed 4 goals on 32 shots. Aiden Hill in the loss, 5 goals allowed on 37 shots. With the win, again, I mentioned Calvin Pickard, 6-0. Also, controversial play late in overtime. Vegas defenseman Braden McNabb pretty clearly tripped by Victor Arvidsson, went hard into the boards, shoulder first, had to leave with the injury. No play on there, no call on the play. It looked like Vegas was denied a power play opportunity, but in the end, the Oilers get another road victory.
Well, a lot to unpack in this game.
Yeah.
And first of all, let's talk about what we mentioned in game 1. The Oilers don't mind being behind. This is their 6th straight come from behind victory. They've trailed in each of the last 6 games and have won all of them. And Calvin Pickard has won 6 straight games. This dude is unbelievable. Now you go on the other side. If you're Jack Eichel, you're not a defenseman. You're flat-footed and you see Connor McDavid with steam coming right at you. I know it's easy to say for me because I'm not in the moment, but I've seen this with other players. Go right through his body. Take the penalty. Do not let him skate right past you. He walks right past you. Now it's a 2-on-1 with the 2 best players in the world. Or just drop the dude. Put your shoulder into him. Hey, that's a penalty. I'll take it. At least I didn't let him walk right past me because there's no chance. He made him look foolish. 10 years ago, the draft was McDavid first, Eichel second. And in this one, McDavid proved why he was taken first and Eichel was taken second. He made him look foolish on that play. And poor Aiden Hill, must have absolutely defecated in his pants when he sees McDavid and Draisaitl on a 2-on-1 in overtime. I got no chance. No, none. Now,
just do the Tim Thomas and skate for the bench.
Or just turn around and push the net off the, I'll take my chances on a penalty shot. At least it's only one of them.
Yeah, no kidding.
That'd
have been a hell of a thing if he would have done that, man.
Nope. It's smart play, though.
Actually,
Dwayne Rollison shaking his head off the,
yeah.
Dwayne Rollison always shook his helmet off when he needed a whistle. That Nicholas Roy cross-check was baffling.
Yeah, what was he thinking? Obviously,
now, granted, the puck was up there, but he was like, he was just a complete brain fart, and he decided to cross-check the guy in front of everybody. Obvious penalty. The correct call was made there. The fact that they killed it off is amazing. A 5-minute power play in overtime, absolutely amazing. But then, if you're going to call that, and rightfully so, Victor Arvidsson absolutely intentionally tripped Braden McNabb. He wasn't going for the puck. This is not beer league. He knows exactly what he's doing at that speed. You may say, oh, it's happening fast. Not for them. These players think and process the game at a very high speed. He knew exactly what he was doing. And he's going in on the forecheck. He's not going to get to the puck in time. So he puts his puck or his stick not towards the puck, but directly between the legs of Braden McNabb, preventing him from being able to skate, tripping him, and he goes hard into the boards. That has to be a penalty. For them to not call that, and who knows, maybe Edmonton kills it off. But you have to equal it up. You can't call one obvious one and then not call the other obvious one. That said, a devastating loss for Vegas, in my opinion. You go down 2-0 on home ice. Now you're going on the road. The Oilers have won 6 straight. It's a very challenging proposition because Edmonton has, just like Florida, they know how to win in the playoffs. They've done it multiple years in a row now. They were in the Stanley Cup final last year, 1 game away from winning it all. They know exactly how to close teams out and advance. And now that they've won 6 straight with their backup goalie and getting contributions from everybody, but primarily their star players are heating up, very dangerous spot for Vegas to be in. And Mark Stone did not look like he was going to be at 100%. After scoring the first 2 goals of game 1, he was slowed in game 3 or game 2, and we will see if he's it's a bad spot for Vegas all the way around because you have to go into Edmonton where the place is going to be rocking and try and even this series up before you come back to Vegas.
Yeah, everything was going the way of the Oilers, the series shifting north of the border. However, Calvin Pickard got hurt in the 3rd period of game 2. He finished the game, was kind of flexing his leg. He couldn't go in game 3, so they had to turn to Stuart Skinner, who lost his starting job after going down and losing the first 2 games of the LA series. So keep that in mind as we go into game number 3. But the Oilers, though, get off to a great start in game 3. Corey Perry with a pair of goals early in the first period, one of them on the power play, and Edmonton grabbed an early 2-0 lead. Vegas, though, would respond with a pair of goals of their own, one of them from Nicholas Waugh, who was not suspended for that cross-check to the face of Trent Frederick. He was fined. He gets a goal, and we're 2-2 after 1, a wild opening period in this one, but it would be wild throughout. William Karlsson would score the lone goal of the second period. Vegas with a 3-2 lead after 2. Third period, Connor McDavid would score off of Braden McNabb's skate late, and it looked like we were heading to overtime, but Riley Smith scored with 0.4 of a second left to stun the Oilers 4-3. Smith, a great hesitation move, goes around 2 defenders. Stuart Skinner then moves out of his net, and Smith just puts the puck into the crease, into a dangerous area, hoping something good would happen. Maybe a teammate would be there. There wasn't, but there was the stick of Leon Draisaitl trying to deflect it out of danger. He puts it into his own net. Vegas stuns the Oilers with a 2-1 win, or excuse me, not a 2-1 win, with a 4-3 win. 2-1 is now the series. Aiden Hill 3 goals on 20 shots in the win, and Stuart Skinner 4 goals on 24 shots to fall to 0-3 this postseason. You mentioned Mark Stone. He was injured in the first period of this one, didn't return. He's questionable for game 4. And Calvin Pickard has already been ruled out for game 4. It will be Stuart Skinner again in game number 4. So what a stunning end to game number 3. How it will turn out and how huge that goal will eventually be when it's all said and done about the series, we'll have to find out. But my God, what a stunning loss and a win from the jaws of defeat for Vegas. I mean, look, it was going overtime, so we don't know, right? What it would have turned out in overtime. Maybe Vegas wins in overtime anyway. Regardless, a stunning end for both teams.
Well, it was the end of that game was wild because for many reasons. One, Connor McDavid got left alone in the slot somehow and had a perfect shot, and Aiden Hill makes the save. An absolutely amazing save with his glove going from his right to his left. So that was amazing. And you thought, man, Aiden Hill's feeling it. That was their chance to tie this game. And then a couple minutes later, Connor McDavid throws an innocent-looking shot towards the slot. And as you mentioned, it goes off.
I think it was actually a pass. I don't think
he just throws it in. You know, it's never a bad idea to throw it towards the net. And it was probably a pass off Braden McNabb's skate into the net. Game's tied. The place is going bananas. The clock is winding down. It looks like we're going to overtime. There's a snafu in the Oilers zone where the puck is out too far for the two guys that are defensively there to play it, but they got to do something. So they both synchronized dive to try and block what they think is going to be a desperation shot because they know time's running out. Riley Smith, I don't know how he knows he's got time, but he collects the puck, skates around him, knows he has to hurry, throws it towards the net. There is a player on the other side, but his stick was tied up by the defenseman. So he had no chance to shoot it in. If the puck was not deflected by Draisaitl, it was going to go right through the crease and we'd go on to overtime. But Draisaitl, he's doing instinctively, he's trying to break up a pass and thinking there's a scoring opportunity. He knocks it right in. And they ruled it no goal. They said no goal on the ice. There was no celebration. They then go over instantly. The Golden Knights bench is looking at the tablet. They see it's in. They pile on before the refs even announce it. They're celebrating, and the fans are stunned, absolutely stunned. What happened? They're waving no goal. Drive home safely, fans. That's it.
It hit the camera and came out immediately. Was, for the naked eye, it was almost impossible to see. I don't even think Riley Smith reacted. Remember, there was that goal.
He did.
Patrick Kane. Remember, Patrick Kane scored, and he was the only one that knew he scored in the final. It was to clinch the series, and he's running around, and everyone's like, "What happened?" Kind of like that a little bit.
Riley Smith and his teammate knew it went in, but they didn't call it a goal, so they were like, what are you talking about? And then as he skates to center ice, he sticks his tongue out with a smile, kind of like I know that went in, and they celebrate. Absolutely amazing ending to that game. It was justified, though, because the Oilers shouldn't have even tied the game. It was a fluke goal to tie it, and then they lose on that one. Stuart Skinner, I texted you, this guy must have pissed off a gypsy or something. He's 0-3 in the playoffs. Calvin Pickard's undefeated, 6-0. I'm 0-3. Same team in front of me. I can't win. This guy can't lose. So now you go in a big game 4. Obviously, if Vegas wins game 4, it's the reverse of what happened to Edmonton in the first round, where they were down 2-0. They tied it. They didn't lose again. If Vegas ties it, they go back home with momentum. And who knows if Calvin Pickard even makes the trip. We'll have to see. But the fact that this could be a tie series, as well as McDavid and Draisaitl have been playing, is pretty impressive. It's been wild. I don't know what to expect. But if Edmonton wins game 4 somehow, some way with Stuart Skinner in net, that sets up, I think, them to clinch it. Maybe in game 6. I don't know if they win all 3 in Vegas, but it sets it up for them to potentially close this out in 6 because they'll have 3 chances at that point. But what an absolutely wild ending to that game. And it's just one that what happened? I don't know what just happened. And if anything happens to Stuart Skinner, by the way, do you know who they have to go with?
I just saw they just called him up from Bakersfield, I think.
Yeah.
I know it's somebody we know, but I can't recall who it was. I think
Olivier
so,
Rodrigue?
Oh no, I thought it was somebody else. That's
who they had as the backup in game 3. Olivier Rodrigue.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with him.
I actually have heard the name, but he could certainly walk in this door and I'd have holding a sign that said I'm Olivier Rodrigue and I'd be like, who are you?
Are you here to fix the plumbing?
By the way, I know we still have another series to wrap up. How many damn pucks have we seen go off a player and into their own net so far? It seems like it's been like 8, at this point. It's they keep going off of bodies.
You're right. I think it's a sign of the desperation to try and get your body in the way of every shot, every pass that goes forward. And that doesn't always work out. And as we've seen, it's sometimes it backfires, but it does seem to be an epidemic right now. And 2 in the last few minutes of this game alone. But man almighty, that was a game. And lost in this because they lost the game. Corey Perry is ageless. The dude turns 40 this week, and he's scoring 2 goals in this game. He's playing on the first line. He looks fantastic. I love him. Former Duck. I know you hate him. The guy is amazing. And the fact that he is still playing at this level in the week that he turns 40 years old is amazing.
Let's move on to our final series. The Stars against the Jets. Dallas winning a 7-game series against Colorado to advance. Winnipeg winning a 7-game series against St. Louis to advance. Dallas was the 4th team to rally down 2 or more goals in the 3rd period of Game 7 to win. And then the Jets were the 5th team. They did it the next night. So I guess appropriate that they meet in the next round. No Miro Heiskanen still for Dallas, but Jason Robertson would return for the start of this series, and Mark Scheifele also back for the Winnipeg Jets for game number 1. Scoreless opening period in this one. A lot of scoring, though, in the second period. Jets would open up with a goal, but then Mikko Rantanen would score not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive goals for the natural hat trick, goals 6, 7, and 8 of the postseason. Dallas would take a 3-1 lead. Winnipeg scores the final goal of the period, Mark Scheifele. So 5 goals in the second period. Dallas, though, with a 3-2 advantage. And then no goals in the third. And the Stars win it 3-2 to take a 1-0 series lead, winning the first game on the road. Jay Cottinger in the win, 2 goals allowed on 31 shots. Connor Hellebuck in the loss, 3 goals allowed on 24 shots. And Mikko Rantanen, the 3rd player in NHL history with hat tricks in consecutive playoff games. The first to do it since a man you mentioned earlier, Jari Kurri, in 1985, before we started doing the show.
Yeah, and he is the amazingly consecutive ones. There's only 3. You mentioned the other one is Doug Bentley back in 1944. So it's been amazing. And he's the first one in over 40 years, as Jari Kurri's was back in 1985. So he's also the first player with multiple hat tricks periods, not games, but he has a hat trick in one period in a single postseason. First player to ever do that, to have 2 hat tricks inside of one period, a hat trick inside of a period within 2 different times in one postseason. So very impressive there. He's factored in on the last 12 goals for the Stars. He's a one-man army right now. He is leading this team, putting them on his back. He's the 3rd player in franchise history with multiple hat tricks in a postseason. The other 2 are Dino Ciccarelli and Joe Pavelski. So he is having a historic run. And we know that Connor Hellebuck has struggled on the road. He's undefeated at home. Here, he loses on home ice. That's a bad sign if you're Winnipeg, because he's going to need to win a road game now. And so far, he has proven he can't even get through a road game without being pulled. So this was a tough loss, I think, for Winnipeg on home ice.
On to game number 2, and a nice start for the home team as Gabe Vilardi would score a power play goal, and then Nikolai Ehlers would add a goal to make it 2-0 after one period for the home squad. Second period, Jets captain Adam Lowry scores the only goal of that period, 3-0 Winnipeg after 2. Third period, Ehlers gets his second goal of the game, this one into an empty net, and the Jets skate off with a 4-0 win to even the series at 1-1. Connor Hellebuck playing his best game of the postseason by far with a 21-save shutout. In the loss, Jay Cottinger allowed 3 goals on 24 shots. But to me, Mikko Rantanen had 1 shot on goal. And I'm like, how is that possible? Number one, if you're him, aren't you telling your teammates, get me the damn puck? I'm hotter than Georgia asphalt in the summertime.
I don't think you got to tell them.
And if you're the team, aren't you saying, get that guy the puck? He's got to shoot 1 shot on goal.
I think in that one, you got to give credit to the Jets of, we're going to make somebody else beat us. Let's focus on him. Let's make that our primary mission. And if somebody else beats us, great. But, well, not great, but at least we didn't let him continue his hot streak. So, but yes, that is a shockingly low number. Connor Hellebuck, as you mentioned, that's his 4th shutout for the Jets. He is now, I think, 6th all time for most shutouts for one franchise in NHL history. A lot of guys from a long time ago are ahead of him. Clint Benedict for the Maroons and then for the Senators had 8 and 7, but that was 100 years ago.
I loved him in Battlestar Galactica in the A-Team.
Clint Benedict?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the same guy.
No?
Nikolai Hobby-Bulin, we've all heard of. He's with the Lightning. He had 5, and Marc-Andre Fleury with the Golden Knights had 5 as well. And then Charlie Gardner 100 years ago with the Blackhawks. But Connor Hellebuck having a rough postseason, but he's in the second round. He gets a shutout win. Nikolai Ehlers had a great game, 2 goals and an assist. He was everywhere. He's a free agent this summer as well. That's a guy that's going to get paid very well by somebody. And he's the second Danish player in NHL history with 3 points in a game. Can you name the other, Eddie? Danish hockey player, 3 points in a playoff game.
No.
It rhymes with Lars Eller.
Oh, Lars Eller?
Hey, well done. Well done. I thought that hint might help you. All time, though, this is a huge win for Winnipeg because if they had gone down 2-0, obviously bad times going on the road. Now it's even. You try and get a split in Dallas and see how you take your chances in Game 5.
All right, on to game number 3, our final game to recap in the second round of the playoffs as the series would shift to Dallas. Connor Hellebuck would allow a goal on the first shot he faced. Defenseman Thomas Harley scoring to make it 1-0 Dallas. Jets, though, would tie it up on a Kyle Connor goal, but Rupe Hentz reclaimed the lead for the Stars with a power play goal, and Dallas would lead 2-1 after 1. In the second period, Nino Niederreiter would score to tie it up at 2-2. In the third period, Dallas would grab a 3-2 lead on a somewhat controversial goal, depending on who you talk to, I suppose. Stars defenseman Alex Petrovic moved his skate to direct the puck towards the net. It goes off his skate towards the net and eventually into the net. There was a very, very, very lengthy review on this one. Somebody joked on social media they could have cut the ice in the time it took, and I don't even think that was an exaggeration.
No.
But eventually, it was ruled that the puck went off of the stick of Connor Hellebuck, that he directed the puck into the net. It wasn't just a deflection off his stick, but it was because of the contact that he made with his stick that caused it to be a good goal. So I guess they were ruling it was a distinct kicking motion, which I didn't think it was. Seconds later, Mikko Rantanen would score his NHL postseason leading 9th goal of the playoffs. Dallas would score one more time, outscoring the Jets 3-0 in the third for a 5-2 victory. Jake Ottinger allowing 2 goals on 25 shots in the win. Connor Hellebuck, 5 goals allowed on 26 shots. Mikko Rantanen, a 3-point game with a goal and 2 assists. In his last 8 playoff games, Rantanen has 9 goals and 9 assists. For the Jets, that's now 8 consecutive playoff road losses, and Connor Hellebuck has been in net for all of them. As far as just this postseason, road games for Connor Hellebuck. Game 3 in St. Louis, 6 goals against. Game 4 in St. Louis, 5 goals against. Game 6 in St. Louis, 5 goals against. And Game 3 in Dallas, 5 goals against.
But he made it through this one without getting pulled.
Well, they took him off for the extra attacker, but yes, not.
But they didn't flat pull him. So
no, that's
there's
true.
at least that.
That's true.
He's got something to build on. And look, it was 2-2 going into the third. It got away from him with the Petrovic and Rantanen goals there. That, to me, if you have to look at it that long and that close, you go with the call on the ice.
Yes.
I mean, my God, it can't be that. It has to be, as we've said many times. I look at it, and if I can't tell at regular speed very quickly, then we go with the call on the ice. Maybe I'll take a couple looks at slow-mo just to make sure. But if I have to really get into, can I see another angle? Can I match frame time codes? No. The call on the ice has to stand at that point.
I did not think it was a distinct kicking motion. So to me, that made it a goal almost immediately. I wasn't sure. I'm like, why are they still looking at this? What are we doing? And I guess
that.
Yeah,
it's if you use your skate to move it, that's a kick. It's it's not.
It has
to.
You have to kick your foot forward.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do. What is a kick then?
If you're playing soccer, you don't have to move your foot forward to kick the ball. If the ball's
but that's not kicking the ball; it's redirecting it.
Semantics, my friend. And this is why we both talked about. If it goes off a skate, it has to be no goal. Just make it very clear. Forget the distinct kicking motion BS, because there's too much argument about what that means. That's different things to different people in different situations. He knew what he was doing. He moved his skate.
Agreed.
And you can't do that.
We see that all the time, and they count that as a goal. You can redirect it as long as you don't kick at the puck. If you move your skate, and redirect it.
If
They
you're
allow
trying to
that.
stop, that's fine. If you're not, if you're redirecting it
I've seen that
intentionally,
called
that's
a
no goal.
goal a million times.
Well, you'll have to show me some examples. Although this is one of them, I guess, because it counted.
Well, no, it isn't, because at least as far as what I read, the reason they took a million years to review
Right.
it is because they believe that Connor Hellebuck was the one who, I don't know if this is the right word, the impetus of him knocking it into his own net. Because if he kicks it and it just deflects off him, we now have learned, we were talking about this with the Evander Kane play against the Kings, that's no goal. Even if it hits off the goalie after you've kicked it,
Right.
it's no goal. But if the goaltender is trying to knock it out of the crease and
Right.
he knocks it in the net, then that is a goal. And apparently that's what they ruled. But if that doesn't matter, unless they're saying it is a distinct kicking motion.
And clearly they were. So they agree with me that was a distinct kicking motion.
But they were wrong.
I think you're wrong, my friend. We will agree to disagree.
He didn't kick it. He just moved his skate, which they do all the time.
Which is kicking it.
It's not kicking it.
Which is kicking it. Yes,
no,
it
is.
isn't.
It's redirecting
yes, it is.
it.
Obviously it is, or they wouldn't have had to look and talk about Connor Hellebuck. They would have just said good goal because he didn't bring his foot back and propel it forward. Obviously that's a kicking motion. But anyway, it's a very bad situation for Winnipeg in that we talked about this in the St. Louis series. They have to go back to Connor Hellebuck in game 4. They have no choice. They can't go to Eric Comrie. And yet he has not won a road game yet. He's been awful on the road. And now it's not a must win, but a highly suggested, because if they lose this one, they go back having to win 3 straight against Dallas, who at any point could be getting Miro Heiskanen back. They've gotten Jason Robertson back. He's back in the lineup for this series, but they could be getting Miro Heiskanen, their best forward or the best defenseman, back. He has been out since January, and here they are up 2-1 in the second round. So absolutely amazing. Mikko Rantanen, the trade deadline move of all trade deadline moves. This guy has been paying dividends time and time again. He is the first player in NHL history with 5 3-point games through his first 10 games of a postseason. That's amazing. He is factored in on each of the Stars' last 5 game-winning goals, going back to game 3 of the first round, the longest streak in franchise playoff history. He leads the league with 18 points in these playoffs, and they have all come in this last stretch. He's the first player to have 18 points through 10 games since 1989, when Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux did it for the Kings and Penguins, respectively. So he's obviously on a historic heater. And when you're talking about going back, who has the most points through the first 10 games of any in franchise history? It's not Wayne Gretzky. It's Newsy Lalonde. Who the hell is that? A guy for the Canadiens.
I've heard the name.
107 years ago. Yeah. Newsy Lalonde.
Great name.
So when you're referencing that record,
Dr. Brian Kennedy knows who Newsy Lalonde is.
Yeah. When you're referencing a Newsy Lalonde record, though, you're doing things that nobody's done in over a century. I mean, flight was still dicey at the time Newsy Lalonde was playing hockey. This is amazing what Mikko Rantanen has been able to do. And Ottawa's got their work cut out, or Winnipeg has their work cut out for them in game 4. I don't know how the team and how Connor Hellebuck has the confidence to go out there. I almost think it's worth putting in Eric Comrie, because maybe the team gets a little boost of, at least we know the guy hasn't struggled. And if you do need him in game 5 to win, at least he's not coming off back-to-back losses where he maybe gets shelled again.
It would be a ballsy move by Scott O'Neill, balls the size of church bells, to make that
bench
move.
The Vezina winner.
Yeah. Yes, it would. But I don't necessarily disagree. When you've lost 8 in a row on the road, you might want to do something drastic to change that up.
And he hasn't even, it's not like he's just bad luck. Like Stuart Skinner played well and lost in game 3 of this series, or game 4 of the series.
Game 3.
Was it game 3?
Yes, they've only played 3 games.
So okay, yeah. So he played well and lost. Connor Hellebuck has not played well yet on the road. So I think you got to try and mix it up. But again, you got to have Connor's blessing on that one, because if he says, I want to play, then I
He's
put you
not.
in.
He ain't giving you his blessing on that.
I don't know, man. I
Oh,
don't know.
if he does, you've got bigger problems than even that. If you're the
No,
guy you
I'm
signed up
not
to be the
saying
franchise goalie for 8 more years or whatever it is, if that
I'm
guy's
not
saying
saying
I don't
he
want to
comes to you
play,
with the idea. I'm saying you explain your reasoning, and if he says
you don't give him the
absolutely not,
choice. No, you can't give him a choice in that. You make the decision and you say, "Hey, you're still our guy, but for this one game, we got to do something to change it up." They're not going to do it though. They're not
no,
going to do it.
they
All
should.
right.
They
So
should.
far through the second round, only one of the series is even at 2-2, which is only the only series that's actually played 4 games at this point. That's Toronto and Florida. Dallas leads Winnipeg 2-1. Edmonton leads Vegas 2-1, and Carolina leads Washington 2-1. We got some quick headlines that we want to touch on, Doug. The LA Kings and GM Rob Blake mutually agree to part ways, and I actually think they're being honest when they say that. They're not just trying to be nice. We don't want to say we fired him. I actually think Rob Blake was like, you know what? It's time for a change, and it was 8 seasons on the job, 5 playoff appearances, but no advancing out of the first round, including 4 in a row to the Edmonton Oilers. So I thought if you look at it in a vacuum, I thought he had a great year as a GM this year, but you can't look at it in a vacuum. It's what he's done through the entirety of his tenure as the general manager, and it just seems like it was time for a change. I don't think he was as horrible as some fans think, but you got to change some things up. I mean, 4 straight first round exits, never advanced out of the first round since 2014 when you won the cup. Time to make a change. They've officially interviewed Ken Holland for the job. I don't know who else they've talked to. I know Mark Bergevin is in-house there, and he's Luc Robitaille's buddy. It seems like kind of the shoe-in hire there because he's got experience as a GM and he knows the team. But we'll see. We'll see if they look at a bunch of different people or not, if they really make this kind of an open interview situation for a bunch of different voices, but time for somebody else. So Rob Blake is out in LA.
I agree that it was mutual because they've been talking about this for a while, and Rob Blake apparently did not want to continue. His contract was up as well, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So it's like if they were worried about anything, he would have signed an extension months ago when the team was playing great hockey and it looked like things were going well. He would have said, let's get this signed before potential playoff collapse. So I do believe it was mutual. But I think if the Kings need to do a lot more this summer than change somebody in the front office, the changes have to be the only mistake that Rob Blake made in the last 12 months was hiring Jim Hiller, taking the interim tag off of him and making him the full-time coach, because that guy is over his head and got out coached. And we haven't talked about that in some of these series, but you mentioned Dallas or Toronto, Florida, and you mentioned the advantages that Florida has in that, in the experience and in net and everything like that. The biggest advantage they have, I think, is behind the bench.
What?
Paul Maurice is outstanding.
Craig Berube's won a cup.
He's won a cup, but he's not one of the all-time great coaches. He's won a cup. Paul Maurice is one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's top 10 all time in wins. Craig Berube he's won a cup, absolutely. But if I were picking between the two, it's a no-brainer that I want Paul Maurice behind my bench.
Okay, but I don't think it's that big of a difference. It's not like Paul Maurice is going up against some rookie coach in his first year on the job.
My point being, there's coaching. Coaching plays a role in the playoffs more than we think.
I agree.
Jim Hiller has been outcoached severely 2 years in a row. And the other guy behind the bench is not exactly Toe Blake for Edmonton, but he's outworked him and outcoached him in these series. So hiring him after he collapsed last year in 5 games against the Oilers, and granted they weren't the best team that they were this year, but Rob Blake did everything he needed to do to put together this roster. The roster was solid. He has a Vezina finalist in net that he went out and got via trade. He's got solid defensive depth that he has signed as free agents or acquired via trade. He's got a loaded roster up and down the lineup at forward that he's either drafted, signed, or retained or traded for. He did his job. The fault lies behind the bench. Now, the new GM will probably be the one that has to tell Jim Hiller, you're out of here. And I'd like to bring in somebody else to coach this team, somebody that knows what they're doing. But this can't, if that does not happen, if Mark Bergevin does get the job, if they do retain Jim Hiller, then that's not enough of a change to try and get different results going forward. The core of this team is underachieving in the playoffs year after year, and something has to change on the ice or behind the bench for there to be differences next season. So this is a first step. We'll see where they go from here. I am glad to see they're at least interviewing some people going outside the organization. I know that Luc Robitaille at his press conference talked about getting fresh eyes on the problem. But if that's the case, then he almost can't hire Mark Bergevin because that's not fresh eyes. That's not a fresh perspective. That's a guy that's already in the organization. And it's just changing the role that he had. So it'll be interesting to see who they hire. There's a lot of good candidates, and they may be waiting for the teams that are still playing for assistant GMs on those teams to get promoted over as well.
So that was the big news for my team. The big news for your team is obviously a new head coach, Joel Quenneville, replacing the fired Greg Cronin. Quenneville, obviously, you talked about Paul Maurice. This guy's a future Hall of Famer to be. 3-time Stanley Cup winner in Chicago, but comes with the baggage of his role in the cover-up of the sexual assault scandal in Chicago, which is why he has been out of a job for a while. So I know people are very curious to get your thoughts on this. Have at it.
Well, when this first got rumored and you sent me a text a while ago that they were interviewing him, I said, we'll see. And I was not happy about it. Some people at work asked me about it because they know I like hockey. And I said, yeah, I'm not thrilled that they're talking to that guy. But at the same time, I knew if they're talking to him, they're probably going to hire him. If he's interested in coming to the team, he and Pat Verbeek are former teammates. So there's a personal connection there. And you don't interview that guy if you haven't already crossed that bridge of considering him to hire him. So it'd be weird to interview him and then say, yeah, we're interested in hiring the second greatest coach of all time, second winningest coach of all time, but we'll pass. We're going to go with somebody else. So I was pretty confident they would hire him once they showed interest. The only difference would be if some other team was interested in him and he went there instead. But I spent so I said, let's see how it goes. And then they hired him. And I said, let me see what he says. Same thing we kind of said with Stan Bowman when he got hired in Edmonton is let's see what steps he took to better himself during his 4 years away from hockey. And they went through it all at the press conference. They explained that he has done extensive work with victims groups and with behavioral therapists and all the different groups that you would need to talk to learn from this mistake and how to better handle it in the future. He's done that work. He's talked to Kyle Beach, the victim back in 2010, one of the victims in 2010, multiple times. The Ducks talked to Kyle Beach as well. They didn't say that they got his blessing, but it would be weird to cite him as having talked to him if he said, absolutely do not hire this guy. And we have not heard from Kyle Beach about that yet. So I have to think he said he got the blessing from them. So while I still don't, nobody will ever approve of what Joel Quenneville did not do, his lack of action in 2010. But the fact is, he got caught. It was well after the fact, but he got caught. He got punished. He served that punishment, and he was cleared by the NHL. Someone was going to hire him, especially when Stan Bowman got hired and has gotten a team to the Stanley Cup final and is back in the playoffs this year. And nobody is bringing up Stan Bowman as a tainted GM at this point. So it was going to happen. And once you get past, and it's a huge jump, once you get past the disgust of his past inactions, as a hockey coach, it's amazing. The guy's the best coach in the NHL. He's the second winningest coach of all time. He has 3 Stanley Cup championships. He has 3 Jack Adams awards. Eddie, he's been behind the bench of an NHL team as the head coach 25 seasons, and only one of them was a losing record. This guy knows how to win. The Ducks, he's the best head coach the Ducks have ever had. And they've had Mike Babcock, who's 1, a Stanley Cup champion, and 2, a Hall of Fame jackass. And they've had Randy Carlyle, who won a Stanley Cup as well. And they've had Ron Wilson, who's not a bad coach. So this blows them out of the water, though. He's by far the best coach they've ever had. He's an absolute proven winner. And it's very similar, as they mentioned at the press conference, to when he took over Chicago. When he got that job in Chicago as their head coach, they had not made the playoffs in 6 years. Ducks haven't made it in 7. But they had a young core of Seabrook and Keith and Taves and Kane. Well, what do the Ducks have right now? I'm not saying these guys are all going to go onto the Hall of Fame, but they've got a young core of former number 1 picks like Zellweger and Minchikov and Carlson and McTavish. So the similarities are very present. And he got the Blackhawks to the conference final in the first year and the Stanley Cup championship in year 2. He went to Florida. They hadn't made the playoffs in a while. He was turning that around. He was 7-0 when he got fired for the unearthed scandal from 15 years or 11 years earlier. So he was turning them around, and then Andrew Burnett continued the work. Paul Maurice reaped the benefit the ultimate reward last year, got them to the Stanley Cup final. So he's done this before. He's taken over a team that struggled and got them with young potential, got them back into the playoffs, got them back into contention. I know he's good I know he can do the job. And as purely on a hockey sense, I'm very excited to have him behind the bench. It's never going to feel right cheering for him because of what he did not do, what he allowed to happen 15 years ago. But at some point, somebody was going to hire him, and he's going to be working. I don't want it to be my team. If I was the GM, I would not have been interviewing him. But I'm not a personal friend of his. Pat Verbeek is. Former teammate, personal friend. And he saw an opportunity to get the best head coach in the NHL behind his bench, and he took it. And to the Ducks' credit, they've said all the right things, and they've said, we realize that words don't mean anything. It's going to be actions, and we are going to follow up with actions. The Samuelis said it, Verbeek said it, and Quenneville said it. Now it's up to them to do it and actually follow up with actions. But I'm very excited about his ability, him as a coach being on the Ducks. Very excited because I firmly believe he will get the best out of this roster. They're going to be drastically better next year, even if they don't make a single move this summer. But the biggest news at that press conference was that Henry Samueli, the owner of the Ducks, said, we told GM Pat Verbeek he has no budget constraints. So the Ducks have over $38 million in cap space to play with this summer and a head coach that I think players are going to want to play for. Nobody was coming to Anaheim to play for Greg Cronin. People may come to Anaheim to play for Joel Quenneville because his success, because of his reputation around the league, which, believe it or not, is pretty good. And I think I'd be hard pressed to find a bigger coaching upgrade than going from Greg Cronin to Joel Quenneville in NHL history. Greg Cronin I've never wanted a Ducks coach fired before until Greg Cronin. I could not stand the way he coached that team, and I thought he was completely over his head. He's an AHL coach in an NHL job. This is a NHL coach that knows how to win and knows how to develop talent. So I'm very excited about that. I'm not forgiving him for his past transgressions, but at the same time, he's served his time. He's served his punishment. He's been caught. He's learned from his mistakes and taken steps to correct the behavior so that if anything like that happens again, he will react differently. I believe that he will. I've got to focus on the hockey part and just say, this is a great move for the Ducks, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'll go you one further. I'll make a little prediction here. Jonathan Taves will be on the Ducks. He mentioned he wants to come back. This is his former coach. He's going to want somebody that he's worked with in the past and can teach the young guys his way from the bench and on the ice. And that's a great depth center to have to teach McTavish and Carlson. I think Jonathan Taves signs with the Ducks this summer.
All right, we still have coaching vacancies in Vancouver, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Chicago, and Boston to fill. One of the hot names, David Carl, the University of Denver head coach. We told you he withdrew his name from the Blackhawks coaching search. He signs a multi-year extension to stay at the University of Denver, so apparently he will not be filling one of those vacancies.
Which is interesting because everybody wanted that guy. And you would think great opportunities abound, not taking it. Let me ask you one, because I've heard you talk about a little bit on the coaching. You're looking for a coach for the Kings. You, Eddie, are
Yeah.
looking for a coach to replace Jim Hiller that has won a Stanley Cup in the past. Would you have wanted Joel Quenneville to be your next head coach?
Sure.
Because I think he would have
I
been
don't
perfect for the Kings.
I don't know that I would have been like overly excited about it, but yes, I think he would have been a major upgrade.
Yeah,
to what we
I
have
think he's
now.
been the guy that you're looking for. And there's still those guys out there. Laviolette is still out there as a guy
Yeah.
that's won a Stanley Cup. But first they got to hire a GM. Then they got to do the coaching search. And those guys could be gone by the time the Kings are ready to look for their coach.
We did finally have a conclusion to the Utah Hockey Club. They are not going to be the Utah Hockey Club anymore. They are now going to be the Utah Mammoth. We both threw our support behind Yeti, but apparently that wasn't possible. I love the logo. Absolutely love the logo. I think it's very cool. The name itself is okay, but I think the logo is really, really cool. It's got the mammoth head with the tusks and the top
The
of his
mountain
head.
range.
Yeah, the mountain range is the top of his head. I think it's a really cool looking logo.
The only thing that's missing is neither the tusk nor his trunk are a hockey stick in any way.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had a little bit of a tape job at the end of the tusk, or something to kind of represent a hockey stick there in either one of those. But I love that. But that's the home jersey. The away jersey is still sticking with the Utah, which I thought was surprising.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
They got the mammoth on the shoulders, but they're going to sell out of those jerseys as soon as they can make them. I mean, it's a beautiful logo.
Color I like. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the colors. I like everything about it. And I like that they actually have a name. The mammoth, it works well. It's unique. It can be one or many. They're going to have a great mascot, I'm sure. You can have the mammoth call, as it were, as they take the ice. It's going to be fantastic. I mean, in fact, I would almost have a mascot so big he couldn't make it into the stadium. He just stayed in the concourse.
All right. We did have the Calder Trophy finalists announced. We mentioned it in the last week's show. Lane Hudson, of course, of the Canadiens, Dustin Wolf of the Flames, and Macklin Celebrini did edge out Matvei Michkov, which was interesting because they had the same number of points. Michkov had one more goal, but apparently the voters thought that Celebrini had a better season somehow. Maybe he was on a worse team, I guess. But those are your three finalists for the Calder Trophy for Rookie of the Year. We had the NHL Draft Lottery, and we'll be talking much more about this, at least Doug will, with our guest Gil Martin in the second period. But the New York Islanders have won the NHL Draft Lottery. They'll have the chance to pick the number one overall selection. San Jose, Chicago, Utah, and Nashville rounding out the top five.
Yeah, they do 2 draft lottery drawings, and the first one's for the first overall pick. Islanders won that one, moving up from number 10th overall pick, to number 1 overall. And then the second pick is for the second drawing. You're going to move up another 10 spots. And Utah, who was 14th, is now picking 4th overall. So huge jump. That means Nashville drops 2 spots. Philadelphia, Boston, Seattle, Buffalo, and Anaheim all drop 2 spots from where they should have been drafting. But San Jose drops 1, Chicago drops 1, and the Islanders and Utah move up 10 spots each. So I will say, we've talked about, is this rigged in the past? This is not the outcome I expected. If they're going to rig it, I thought they were going to rig it in favor of Boston. They did not. Boston, in fact, moves down 2 spots. So hard to argue that this is a rigged thing. But at the same time, some teams have luck and some teams do not. And the Islanders had luck today.
Any other NHL news that maybe I didn't bring up that you want to mention before we close out the first period?
I do not believe so, my friend. Let's, if you're watching on YouTube, I highly recommend you check out the interview that we do with Gil Martin in the second period. Really good insights and a surprising twist to the firing of Lou Lamoriello. So stick around for that.
That'll do it for our first period of the YouTube show. If you enjoyed it, check out the remaining 2 periods of the podcast. Search Puck Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening to the podcast, the second and third periods are coming right up. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. And we'll talk to you next time with another edition of the Puck Podcast.